Hey everybody, this is Darren Van Damme and you are watching Flick Connection, and today I want to tell you about some of the most absolutely f***ed up movies you can currently watch on Amazon Prime. So all of these movies are totally f***ed up and totally free to watch with your Prime membership. Now keep in mind, if this video gets a little bit older, some of these are not going to be available with Prime, but they still will be available to rent. But at the time of me posting this, they're all free to watch in the US. But today's sponsor, CyberGhost VPN, will help you unlock them if you live in another country. I'll tell you more about that later in the video. This list is also going to exclude movies that I've talked about on the channel recently. Movies like Midsommar, Hereditary, and Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. All movies that qualify for this list, but I don't like to repeat myself much, but I'll put links to some other Prime video lists in the description.
There is nothing to fear. Everything's gonna be fine.
Are you sick? You realize nothing is ever gonna grow inside us?
Break the laws of nature. You'll pay for it.
My number 10 pick, though, is High Life. Now, this is a recent release starring Robert Pattinson, as he is clearly like on a steep upward trajectory. He's in the next Christopher Nolan movie. Like, the guy's got it made. But this is a smaller space movie. I don't quite know how to qualify this into a genre, but this is a very thinky movie, and this is one that I'm not recommending for everybody. This one's very, how do you say, what is it called?
It's metaphorical!
Metaphorical. If you're not willing to think about the metaphor and sort of figure out what all the different symbols in this movie mean, you're gonna be bored with it. If you don't like watching movies that way, then this one's probably not the one for you. It's not straight down the middle. It's not very apparent as to what this movie is about, but there's enough of the pieces of the puzzle there that you can put it together, and it's got a great look to it. It's got an interesting style. It is very slow paced, but I found it to be interesting, and then it ultimately sort of did deliver a concept. There's a decent amount of meat on the bone if you're, you know, willing to sink your teeth into it. So my number 9 pick is another one I do not recommend for everyone, and then the rest of the list is much more accessible, but this one fits squarely on this list. This is Gaspar Noé's CLIMAX. Now this is about a dance troupe, I guess we call them. I don't know what they're called, but they're in this one location for the entire movie. They're a dance team and they're practicing and they're also partying and having fun, and someone spikes the punch and everyone goes on an insane acid trip. Like, really rough stuff at times, really. But the first 30 minutes or maybe even more of this movie is really just the party. You're being introduced to the different characters in a very odd way. It's a very just stark kind of, I did not like that part of the movie, to be honest, but it's Gaspar Noé. His directing style is really unique. There's kind of a David Lynch-esque quality to it at times, but it's very raw. But man, when it starts going crazy, does it go crazy. Again, not one for everybody, but if you like the way I've described it, then this one is probably for you.
Justin Witter, 10 years old. Went missing on a bike ride last night near Jupiter Park. Park ranger found the bike. No boy.
Now, one that is much more accessible is my number 8 pick. It's another recent release called I See You. This one stars Helen Hunt, and while it's not really a horror movie, it certainly is like a horror subgenre thriller thing. The less you know about this one, the better. So I cannot say much, but it's got some intense sequences. It's got a very interesting concept that sort of slowly reveals itself as you watch the movie. I thought it was good. I think people who like true crime stuff, murder mystery stuff are gonna dig this. I think people who really are hoping for some sort of crazy horror movie are gonna be disappointed. But if you temper your expectations and sort of like have an open mind, then this one is, you know, surprisingly good for a small sort of indie release that came out just last year. My number 7 pick is Them. This is a horror movie, thriller, about a couple who is just being pursued by some hooded figures, very much in the vein of The Strangers or Eden Lake, but this one's French language. The foreign language is not going to be an issue because it's two people running and screaming for most of the movie. I know that doesn't really sell it. It's obviously more than that. I thought it had a really interesting sort of path that the characters take. It's sort of this sort of like epic run, this sort of like unknown sort of masked evil. I thought that that was really great, and it just sort of keeps moving. I like this one a lot. It's very simple. There's not a lot more to it than what I'm describing. Very different from some of the other ones I just described in that regard, but very well executed. It's frightening and it's intense at times. If you've never seen this one, it's a gem. It's been around for a while and has a little bit of a following, so check it out if you're into that type of a flick.
We need to leave before they get here.
What would convince you that I'm not crazy?
My number 6 pick is one I've been wanting to talk about for a long time, and it just has not been on streaming services in a long time, and that's Resolution. Now this is actually done by the same directors as The Endless, which I know a lot of you liked on Netflix, and it's currently on Netflix, but Resolution, while those two movies do have a connection, they're on two different platforms. So if you've never seen Resolution, it's on Prime right now. It is a much smaller movie than The Endless, but it's still really sort of brilliant. I'll just go ahead and say it mostly takes place in one location. You can kind of feel the budget restraints, but that is the story that was written, and it works very well in that environment. And it centers around a guy trying to get off of drugs. He's handcuffed in this little cabin, and they're, just trying to, him and his friend are just trying to make it through the weekend. And weird things start happening. This one does have some very wild ideas going on inside this relatively small story. It is slow paced, but fans of The Endless, this is almost a must watch if you liked that movie. All right, before moving on to my top 5 plus honorable mentions, you'll get some additional recommendations out of this video. CyberGhost VPN sponsored this video, but they're a service I have been using a lot, and over 120 of you have signed up for it just in the month of March alone. I've gotten positive feedback, and it's because while it's a VPN service that protects your web browsing, keeps it secure and private like all VPNs, CyberGhost has specialized servers that allow you to watch streaming services like Netflix and Prime Video in other countries. If you're in another country and you want to watch all of my recommendations in this video, CyberGhost is a great way to do that. If you're in the US and you want to see what's on streaming in other countries, CyberGhost is a great way to do that. They have a great 45-day money-back guarantee. They've got great 24/7 customer support, and you can use CyberGhost on up to 7 devices simultaneously. Devices like Android, Mac, Windows, Fire Stick, Chrome, and you can sign up for as low as $2.75 a month when you use my link in the description. Check it out, try it out for 45 days, see if you get the value out of it by watching more movies like some of the ones that I recommend here. But let's move on with my top 5 picks.
David, there's somebody outside.
Military started shooting town folk.
We gotta get out of here, guys!
So The CRAZIES is a remake, and a fairly good one. This is a really enjoyable movie. Not totally certain it's the best time to be watching this movie because it's basically about an outbreak. Even though philosophically it's turning people into zombies, they're not really zombies. It's just sort of like switching something in their brain and making them extra violent. And it's pretty wild. I thought this one, not only did it have a good cast led by Timothy Olyphant, I think that's how you say it. Can't ever remember how to say his name, but it's really well executed. It's got some great sequences, some dark sequences, some up sequences per this video. So if you've never seen it, it's a great watch. But this is one of the more watched movies on this list, the one that sort of like had the big theatrical release that a lot of people did see. If you missed it, watch it. But I've got some other good sort of like hidden gem types coming up on this list.
Yeah, so you were saying 700 for the 38?
Yeah.
Hey, I will say, she's got a nice little set of tits on her. You two are right, Perrin.
And speaking of hidden gems, Harry Brown stars Michael Caine, and this one, he plays, obviously he's an old man at this point because it's a recent release movie, but He is basically trying to take back his neighborhood. Sort of just gang violence and crime has just overrun his neighborhood. Some people have died, and he just like has had enough. So this has got very much like a death wish storyline, and it's very well executed. Like, obviously Michael Caine gives a great performance. Some of the villains give incredible performances. There's a scene where he goes to buy some weapons that is just really intense, that has stood out to me. Like, I've remembered it forever. Really gnarly stuff going on in this one, and it's not done in like a fun, like, oh, Michael Caine is like rigging traps like he's Kevin McAllister or something. No, this is just dark, gritty, fairly realistic stuff. If you like that genre, you like movies like Death Wish, Harry Brown is a must watch. My number 3 pick is Jacob's Ladder. Now, this is one of the best movies on the list, and the only reason I have it at number 3 is because I have talked about it, but I had to put it on this list because it's easily one of the most f***ed up movies on Prime Video right now. In this movie, Tim Robbins plays a mailman, which is totally irrelevant that he's a mailman, but he starts having these visions, and they're not really visions, they're just little glimpses. Like someone on the subway maybe looks like they have a tail. A receptionist looks like she maybe has a horn kind of hiding under her hair, and it just escalates majorly. It ramps up slowly, and once it gets going, it really gets going. This one's very dark, very f***ed up, but also just really sort of like beautiful movie. It's really fantastic. There is a remake on Netflix right now. I have heard it is awful. I love the original so much that I'm not even gonna touch it. This is really fantastic stuff. If you've never seen it, watch it, but make sure you're in the right mood because this is a very thinky movie. It's almost psychedelic, as was CLIMAX earlier in the video, but this has got some dream sequence stuff that's really incredible, a lot of practical effects, and it just descends into darkness in this really sort of almost poetic way. It's really impressive.
To tell you the truth, I'm a little shaky right now. I had brain surgery. Why don't I go get some lunch, and then, well, come back and take care of it then.
My number 2 pick on the most up movies on Prime Video is Leaving Las Vegas. I have loved this movie for a really long time, even though I do not watch it often because it is such a downer of a movie. This is the one that Nicolas Cage won an Academy Award for Best Actor. He didn't win for some weird thing, he won for Best Actor in this, and he really is fantastic. He plays an alcoholic who is not a recovering alcoholic. He plays an alcoholic who has decided to drink himself to death in Las Vegas, and he sort of hooks up with this prostitute played by Elizabeth Shue, and they fall in love very quickly, and then have this sort of weird relationship as she continues to work and he continues to drink himself to death. Dark stuff, but his performance is great and funny at times. Like, he has fun when he's drunk sometimes, and other times not so much. This one's got some wild stuff going on in it. Very dark. It's gonna put you in a depressed mood. Hopefully not for too long, but it is a downer of a movie, but just really well directed and sort of a beautiful movie as well. And then before my top pick, here are some honorable mentions, some other ones that I do recommend that didn't quite fit into the top 10. The Wild and Wonderful Whites of West Virginia is a documentary about this wild ass family that lives in West Virginia. I mean, gasoline huffers and all sorts of stuff, but this is actually Jessica White, who appeared on Roseanne back in the 90s. There was a little documentary called The Dancing Outlaw, I believe it was called. And this is just about his family. It's crazy stuff. There have been several movies loosely based on this family, but this is a documentary about the family, and trust me, it is super f***ed up. House of Sand and Fog is another downer of a movie, kind of like Leaving Las Vegas. It stars Jennifer Connelly and Ben Kingsley as they both sort of like battle over the rights to this house, and things get very dark and very much out of hand through the course of this one. Downer of a movie, but really well acted, really well directed. And then Open Grave is just this dark horror subgenre thing where Sharlto Copley wakes up in a giant open grave full of bodies, climbs his way out, finds a house. It's full of other people who also woke up under similar circumstances. That's the first 5 minutes of the movie. That's the setup. It just goes off the rails from there. I know I sound excited about it. It's a little disappointing because it seems like it should have delivered more, which is why it didn't make the top 10. And then my number 1 pick is not only the most f***ed up movie on this list, it's one of the most f***ed up movies ever made. It's called AMORES, PERROS, which translates to Love is a Bitch. This one is about a car accident that connects 3 different stories, which I normally do not like that format of the connected stories. This one does it perfectly. This is from the same director as Birdman and The Revenant. And this movie was kind of a big deal when it came out. It starts off with a really rough scene. If you ever frequent the website Does the Dog Die? Do not watch this movie. But man, is it good. It is dark, it is gritty, and it's ultimately about love, and it's about the pain that love can cause. It really deserves this top spot. If you want to watch something that is really pretty f***ed up, this is a great way to go. It's one of those movies that movie buffs need to watch at least once in their life. Let's put it that way. So let me know what you plan on watching in the comments below. Also help me thank the Patreon supporters. They are responsible for me doing lists like this that are not necessarily gonna get as many views as my Netflix list, so you have them to thank for that. There's a link to the Patreon in the description as well if you want to go check it out and see if that's for you. But I will keep making Prime lists like this one as long as you keep watching them. Thanks for checking out this f***ed up episode, and you will see me on the next one.